Ladies and gentlemen, we've hit the end of Bleach's second cour, The Separation. And of course, as a respected Bleach connoisseur, I need to review this for everyone. And because this is a full review over the second cour, I won't be talking about the first, nor spoiling for the third and fourth. That being said, I don't want to waste time because this is going to be a long video. But before you sit down and grab your snacks, if you like this content, please like and subscribe. I appreciate all the love and support. Let's go ahead and get started. So it's crazy to think about, we're already 26 episodes into the Bleach series, but this also means we're halfway through the final arc. Now, since we'll only be going over the second cour of the 1,000-Year Blood War, there's plenty to talk about, and that includes new content that we did not have in the manga. That being said, let's give a brief synopsis of what's happening within the story. Of course, cour 2 is following cour 1, and we're now starting the second invasion. Within this part of the story, we do have the Quincy's that are considered the quote-unquote enemies, and this group has two main goals to complete. The first being an average Stern Ritter wants to beat Ichigo Kurasaki, who is our main protagonist. If they can beat Kurasaki, they get a reward for doing so. And as we know, the reward can be whatever they imagine as long as they do the job. Now, this order is given to the regular Quincy's that don't have much of a say-so as to what happens next. The second goal comes from the leader Yawatch. Now, Yawatch is aiming towards the royal palace. And as we see, he brought a couple buddies to help him out, but he's also willing to take back the power from other Quincy's and give it back to those main four. Now, is there a bigger picture as to why he's doing so? Yes, of course there is, but we can't talk about that too much because he hasn't said so himself. As far as we know as the viewers, he mainly wants to stop Soul Society from functioning. And that's all you really need to know for this cour. Again, it's a war with the Quincy's versus the Soul Reapers and other allies along the way. Now, that's the big part of the story, so let's jump into the characters for a quick second. When it comes to Bleach's characters, I picked 5 major factions of this arc. Some of them are just single characters themselves, but it's good to mention them anyways. And I'm sure you probably know about them, so I don't want to spend too much time on every one. So the first major player of this arc is of course Ichigo Kurasaki, our orange-haired knucklehead ninja, our orange-haired substitute Soul Reaper that's really here for the cause. Ichigo is a reactionary character. He does things for his friend's best interest, even if it really doesn't involve him. Throughout this arc, we find out not only Ichigo is part Quincy, but he also has the powers of a Hollow and a Fullbringer and a Soul Reaper. He's really just everything combined. And when Squad Zero's leader Ichibe tells him to train, it seems as if he wants him to replace the Soul King. Not saying that will necessarily happen, but the story is changing, so we'll see in the near future. The next character is Udu Ishida, and he is a true Quincy. Hidden away from other Quincy, including Yawatch for majority of his life, he decides to go against his dad. And I guess he just walks outside and joins the group. While Uryu is one of Ichigo's closest friends, he's willing to put that aside so he can help the Quincy's. As we all know, it's very weird for him to do it so blindly. But nonetheless, the Majesty gave him some delicious blood and here he is. Not only that, we find out he's going to be the successor. So as a viewer, just stay tuned to this character because you know there's more to him. Next on the list, I picked Squad Zero because the anime ended with their fight. These are all captains that are above the Gote 13 themselves. And with these 5 characters, they're not only supposed to look over the Soul Society, but also the Royal Palace. Now, these 5 characters were a tremendous letdown during the manga. You see, they basically got erased instantly. But now, not only are they putting up a fight against the Royal Guard, they're even showing new powers we didn't know about before. Each one of them could get their own video, but that's not for right now. The next one on the list is the Royal Guard I just mentioned. These main 4, including Hashwald, are the Quincy's that Yawatch cares about. They were not brought into the fight until the conflict with Squad Zero. As a viewer, we don't get too much from these characters. Matter of fact, they haven't even told us the full strength that they have. But these characters will play a huge role in cour 3. Not to mention, when Yawatch used Ashwaulan, they're the ones that got the power. Yawatch could have just chose to keep it himself, but he did decide to give it to these 4 and it awakened their wing. So you can bet your sweet Bippy they will play a role in cour 3. And of course, the final one on this list is the Quincy King himself, Yawatch. Yawatch, or Yuha, however you say his name, is years amongst years old. And he's of course the Quincy King who's able to give other Quincy's his power. Pretty much every other Quincy has the ability to take reishi from other objects and people. However, Yawatch has the ability to distribute it to others. And that of course is how he gives other characters shrifts. Now that's a nice solid list of the characters from this section. As I mentioned before, with the end of the second cour, this means we hit the halfway mark. With these 13 episodes, this was specifically focused on the regular Sternritters. We've had many fights throughout this arc, which I would like to talk about one by one. So, before we get started, fasten your seatbelts because there's quite a bit to go through. The first fight we get is Rangiku and Toshiro versus Kangdu and Basby. Hitsugaya and Rangiku, for various reasons, is a popular fan favorite. So Kubo, the creator, knew this was a good fight to start off with. Now, to give them an introduction, Basby is the letter H, the heat. Basically, he has the ability to control fire. Not the first time we've seen that, right? The other character fighting is Kangdu, who is the letter I. Kangdu has the ability to turn himself into iron. Now, I promise the shrifts get much more interesting past these two. The fight was pretty great, especially because it didn't start off with Hitsugaya using his Bankai. Since it was stolen, he actually had to use his brain and work with his lieutenant. That being said, he caught that L. And to secure a win, they needed to holify his Bankai to do it. Now, since the other fight was happening within parallel, we should also talk about the next one. Soifone and Amida versus the letter K, BG9. Now, Soifone's fight was unfortunately put off screen. It's very sad, especially because I'm sure Soifone lovers would want to see her use her new Shunko. But no, the next time you see her, she's already lost. Now, BG9 is an interesting character because we never see his shrift. Now, we can assume that it has something to do with research, which is why he tried to dissect her, but no, they just tell us he's letter K and that's it. This fight gets even worse because he's defeated by one shot from her Bankai. And plus, it doesn't even make sense how he got hit. We've been told before that Soifone's Bankai is big and heavy. So what is he doing? Just standing here to get shot? Failure fight, I won't lie, this one wasn't it. Moving right along to the next fight, we now have Bambietta Bastrabine. This character is also a fan favorite, I wonder why. However, using her ability E the Explode, she can make balls of reishi. These balls are basically bombs that explode upon contact. And since these bombs have reishi inside of them, you can't really block them. It sounds like a pretty good ability, especially compared to the others, until you get paired up with this dude. Our favorite furry captain Komamura, who's willing to give up his life. As we know from the previous series, Komamura was judged being a wolf-like figure. And as he comes back to this battle, he wears a similar veil as he used to wear back in the previous series. However, this time it's not to hide that he's a wolf. Instead, he's hiding the fact that he's a human. That's right, he gave up his heart to get revenge for Yamamoto. And when you think about the overall sentiment, it's pretty nice. One of the characters that looked past his appearance gave him a chance to be a captain, and now he wants to get revenge for the said captain. However, the pesky hothead is in the way, so you have to get rid of her first. Ironically, Komamura goes down the same route that Tozen did. Since he gave everything up for revenge, he doesn't see quite clearly. And of course, he has to face the consequences. This right here was a solid fight, and it also was the end of Komamura. But alas, it's at least memorable. Up next, we have Mask the Masculine, who is the holder of S Superstar. From what we find out through the adaptation, he's not actually the holder of the shrift S, it's actually James. This is a character that is rooting for the little guy, an imaginated character that will get stronger to defeat his foes. And as his partner James cheers him on, he'll only get stronger. In fact, Mask has shown he can even repair organs if he needs to. Amongst the first couple of fights we get, Mask is one of the strongest Sternritters we see, and he even puts down 5 different Soul Reapers pretty easily. Matter of fact, 2 of them didn't even stand a chance, and we expected them to do something. It's just so pitiful what happened to these two, I can't believe it. But his main opponent was actually Renji, and Renji Abarai shows up with his new Bankai. We find out that Renji never knew the full name of his Zanpakuto, and now that he knows it, he has a brand new Bankai to go with it. Unfortunately, this fight does not end by Renji overpowering Mask, but instead Mask himself goes a villainous route. He even claims that he doesn't mind looking like the bad guy as long as he can destroy Renji. Overall, he ends up killing James himself, and then in that viewpoint, he looks like the villain. This fight here was done pretty nicely, however, we didn't get enough from Renji's Bankai itself. But hopefully we'll get another chance to see him again. Rolling into the later half of the season, we get a fan-anticipated fight with Rukia versus Asnot. Asnot having the shrift F, which is the fear, he can project fear into another being's body. We see it multiple times that Asnot can do this by shooting projectiles into his opponent. Once being pierced, you will perceive fear as whatever you find scary. Asnot also has a crazy holy form at which he can put that through your optic nerves. We also get a small backstory for this character that he was scared himself at one point. Realizing he could have lost his life, Yuha decided to give him a power, and he has a shrift now. A really great character, honestly, and he got paired up with a pretty great fight. As we know, at first he absolutely destroyed Byakuya. However, after the training session, Byakuya doesn't have to fight him anymore, instead it's his little sister Rukia. Now this character is for sure the fan favorite part of the fight because Rukia also got an awakening. You see, with her new ability, she can freeze her body to an ungodly amount. Being able to freeze her body to such a low temperature, she even says that she is technically dead. It really doesn't make sense, I'll be honest with you, even Asnot himself doesn't understand it. But because of this, she's basically immune to anything Asnot can do. Well, that is until he uses his holy form and can induce fear through the optic nerves. But even though Rukia can freeze her organs, she can't freeze her eyes, and that's when Big Brother comes in to save the day once again. However, instead of doing the fight himself, he lets Rukia show off her new Bankai. And I must say, it's a very pretty Bankai, but overall it just freezes everything to absolute zero, if not even lower than that. But regardless, this is a great fight and one of the better animations we've seen thus far. However, they decide to give us another banger with the next fight. Next up, we get a fight between Kenpachi Zaraki and the new Stern Ritter Grimmy. He holds the power V, which is for visionary. With this power, he's able to create anything that he dreams of. As long as he can imagine it, it will become reality. And Grimmy, he is doing everything that a kid would want to do, creating large amounts of lava out of nowhere or creating guns behind his back. This character can create anything that he thinks of, and he does it in an extreme speed. However, there is a problem with Grimmy. You want to take a guess? This dude's literally a kid. While he has one of the strongest shrifts known to the Stern Ritters, he's still a child. Because of that, he imagines his own self being destroyed, and once he starts seeing himself being defeated, that is exactly what happens. We also get Kenpachi's Shikai here, and we know the name of his Zanpato. However, he doesn't really get anything special from it. Instead, he just chops up a meteor, which he could have done even if he wasn't in Shikai. I'm just assuming, I'm just guessing, chill out. But the biggest problem with this episode is it was one episode. Within the same episode we get introduced to Grimmy, we also see him depart. And this is one of the strongest abilities we've ever seen. Could you imagine someone like Aizen having this power? There would be no series. So to know that he dies due to his own inexperience is quite unfortunate. However, this is still a great fight nonetheless. Moving along, we have a series of fights, so get ready. Ichigo Kurasaki returns with some new powers, but more importantly, some new drip. And since the Stern Ritters are told that they will get anything they want if they can beat Ichigo Kurasaki, they're all ready to fight. But the main ones we get to see from this fight are the Bambis. The characters we get introduced to are Lil Toto, known as G the Glutton, Menines, known as P for the Power, Candace, known as T for Thunderbolt, and finally Gazelle with the ability Z the Zombie. All of their shrifts are pretty straightforward by their names. Lil Toto has a big mouth and can eat anything that she wants and also gain its power. Menines is just strong. That's really all she is. Candace has an elemental attribute which is electricity, and Giselle can create zombies with her own blood. Well, with his own blood, let me be honest here. These characters all have a shot to fight Ichigo and get embarrassed very badly. In fact, Ichigo got to the point that he was trying to help them fight. However, of these Stern Ritters, Gazelle gets the most screen time because she has multiple fights. Since she is using other characters' powers, we find out that she's been storing other Soul Reapers. Characters such as Toshiru, Rangiku, and the Loser Visors. She's able to call upon these characters and use them to fight. The saddest one she uses is Bambietta, who was supposed to be her friend. But we can tell a little bit later that she has some other things going on with her, so we won't talk about that for now. To counteract Giselle, we have Mayuri show up to the fight using previous Arancars. These Arancars came from the Waco Mundo arc once Mayuri defeated Xyloporo. After defeating Xyloporo, he finds out that there's just Arancars hanging inside his lab. So therefore, he takes them and decides to use them as his own. These fights take up a couple of episodes, but they're at least very, very good. And after this portion, we're introduced to one of the last fights with these regular Stern Ritters, which is Pepe. Pepe, who is also the L for the love, can shoot a heart at anyone and make them love him. Byakuya takes care of him pretty quickly. I don't have much more to say about this. Pepe was for sure a very, very bad character. You see, he mentioned that his power is technically stronger than Giselle's the zombie. Since they're alive, he can make them do basically whatever he wants using his love power. However, that just doesn't work on big boy Byakuya. Nuh-uh, get put down. And finally, if you've been sticking with me, we're reaching the final portion of this part. The last fight we get is Squad Zero versus Yuha and his Royal Guard. I have nothing to say about Nanzul either, he lost. The Royal Guard are Quincy's that Yuha finds better than the others, and Yuha is even willing to take from his other Quincy's to give to these main four. Now these main four are going to be an important factor to the next cour, but let's go over them now because we'll be going over them again in the near future. The first Stern Ritter that we have seen before it is Askin Naklavar, which is D the Death Dealing. By consuming a substance, he's able to change the lethal dose of that said substance. Now you would assume that's a very bad bad power, especially because we just see him drinking blood. However, because of it, he's able to change the substance of something else that's not even a part of him. By drinking the blood of Oetsu, he's able to make Oetsu's blood currently in his body poisonous. But of course, there's much more to him that we have not seen yet. Next on the list is Lil Baro, which is X the X-axis. With his power, he's able to penetrate anything from a target he picks and his gun. But instead of shooting a bullet, he instead erases the point between the target and his gun. Again, I can't say too much about this character because he has more. The last two characters, while having a Shrift, were not given power from Yuha. The first one being Pernida, also known as C the Compulsory. Using Pernida's ability, he's able to control nerves. As we see, he's able to bend, twist, and break anything that he can look at. And of course, as you assume, if he can control nerves, he can do a lot more that we'll see later. The last one we have is Gerard Valkyrie, which is M the Miracle. Gerard is the only character here that never shows his Shrift. With Gerard's ability, he's able to make the impossible possible. In the near future, we'll see any time that he's up against somebody that should be able to beat him or take him out, his body will help him grow in strength and size so he can overcome that said obstacle. And as you can assume, Gerard Valkyrie is another character you'll see in the near future. With two other high-level Stern Ritters having two brand new fights, I should also point them out. The first being Hashwad with the ability B, the Balance. Using the power of the Balance, he's able to equal out luck. For example, if you're able to have good fortune, he can equal it out with misfortune. And our other character is our beloved Udu Ishida. With his new ability A, the Antithesis, he's able to switch places of two objects. We got a small teaser of these abilities, however, it wasn't during a fight. So as you know, in the near future, we'll get more from both of these characters. Now that we know who's fighting on the Quincy side, we should also look at Squad Zero. These characters are Soul Reaper captains that protect the Royal Palace. In fact, they even claim that they're supposed to be stronger than the whole entire Gote 13. Even though we don't see that from some of them, there's for sure one that got more spotlight than others. Senjimaru is a character from the Squad Zero division that put in the most work for this adaptation. In fact, we also got to see her Bankai. To use any of their Bankais, they must complete a ritual. Using this ritual, they must sacrifice 3 of their own lives so the other one can use the Bankai. It's kind of insane, in fact, and I assume because they're so willing to do it, they must have done this before. But anyway, Senjimaru's Bankai can manipulate space. Using her cloth ability, she's able to create a room at which her enemies are trapped inside. Depending on the room that you're trapped inside, you can go through multiple different scenarios. For example, being completely frozen that you can't move, creating a black pit of sand that you'll fall inside, or simply having your power drained in an illusion. Senjimaru's Bankai seem to seal the face of the Royal Guard, but we'll see what happens next. And last but not least, we made it to the final fight, which is Ichibe and Yuha. Now, if you are a part of the Bleach community, I'm sure you were hoping to get the final part of this fight. But unfortunately, they decided to split it up at the end. But we still got a taste of both of the characters' powers. Ichibe controls everything black within the world, which is a crazy statement, and with that power, he can rewrite anyone's name. For example, he was able to change Yuha's name to a black ant, therefore he only had the power of a black ant. Ichibe for sure decides to flex for absolutely no reason. And since Yuha doesn't currently have his full strength, it's kind of an unfair fight. However, this fight was not the center of attention, therefore they only wanted to show Ichibe's Shikai. And I'd say they did a pretty good job, especially how the ink looks. However, that's how the season ends, on a cliffhanger. So now that we went over the full story, let's do a nice synopsis of what we got. Now listen, this is Bleach's second cour right after the big return of the series. And I'd argue, taking away the fact that the first return was very hype, this part was better. However, let's go over some small complaints first. Since this part is called The Separation, we expected to see Ichigo and Uryu to have more confrontation. However, we did not get that here, nor did we get the fight that we were expecting. Now, I am very positive that these two characters will have a fight later on, but since one of these characters is not the main bad guy, it's hard to see that part written in. Another issue is some characters did not have enough time to do anything. While Squad Zero did get a new fight at which a lot of people disliked them in the manga, some characters such as the Visor still did nothing. I mean, these are literally 3 top tier captains that have hollow masks. task. You'd think they would be able to, you know, use it, but instead they're just tossed to the side. The most we got was Shinji's Bankai, and even so, it was only used on some Sodat. This part also speaks to characters like Grimmy that did not have more than one episode. I will hold true to this till the day I die, but 52 episodes is not enough. With so many characters in such a big series, you need more episodes. And now that the regular Quincy's died so quickly, it's hard to even remember them. And hell, I'm not even talking about the ones that didn't even get their shrifts revealed. But again, these are very small issues and I don't want to complain about them too much. Because within this series, we got a lot of things that we wanted. Bankais that we would have not seen, such as Shinji Maru and Shinji. Characters having more in-depth backstories such as Yuha. And adding on to that, we even get new information such as knowing what happened to the Soul King. The anime brought more life to the series that we wanted from the manga. And I'd argue that this is a very good adaptation. I do expect Cour 3 to be the best cour, especially because of the build-up. However, that being said, the story is about to change dramatically. So if you made it to the end of this video, I want to know what you guys think in the comments down below. And especially the people that have not been a part of Bleach's community before. If you have never seen the original Bleach and the 1000-Year Blood War is your first take, then I want to hear from you. Again, you had 20 minutes of me, so go ahead and get in the comments and hit the like button if you like this video. And before you drop, if this video does well, I like to do another arc. So if you want to see a review like this about another series, let me know down below as well. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you next time for Cour 3.